My name's Eli. I'm 27, and I've always been the quiet one in the family. Not in a shy, shrinking violet kind of way, but the type who learned early that speaking up often got met with an eye roll, a dismissive laugh, or a "don't be so sensitive" from my mom. It wasn't always that way. Or maybe it was, and I just didn't recognize it as a kid. But I do now. It was especially clear on my birthday this year, when everything that had been simmering beneath the surface for years finally boiled over. Let me back up. My younger brother, Caleb, turned 25 in March. Our parents threw him what can only be described as a luxury weekend getaway. They rented a lake house 3 hours out of town, a modern glass cabin with a wraparound deck, hot tub, fire pit, private dock, the whole deal. They flew in two of his friends from out of state and even hired a private chef for the weekend. The photos were all over Facebook. My mom captioned them, "So proud of our baby boy. Celebrating Caleb in style. He deserves the world." There were group shots of them toasting champagne, fishing, playing poker, laughing around a campfire. One picture was just Caleb, with the caption, "A king deserves a castle." I didn't like the photos. I didn't comment. I didn't say anything, really. But that was the first time I felt it in my chest, not like jealousy, but this slow, creeping realization they wouldn't do this for me. Not because they couldn't, but because they wouldn't think I was worth it. Still, I brushed it off. Caleb's always been the golden child. He's loud, charming, effortlessly social. I was the straight-A student growing up, the one who didn't cause trouble, the one who stayed up late studying instead of sneaking out. And somehow, that made me invisible. But I figured, maybe for my birthday, they'd still do something. My birthday was 2 weeks ago, April 5th. I cleared the day, just in case. Didn't plan anything with friends, didn't book anything myself. I didn't want to step on any surprise plans, you know? Around 1 p.m., I got a text from my mom. "Stop by the house when you're free today." That was it. No exclamation point. No, "happy birthday," nothing. I sighed, but I went. I told myself maybe she was just playing it cool. Maybe they were planning something small but heartfelt. I got there around 3 p.m. Caleb was on the couch, scrolling on his phone. Dad was out back mowing the lawn. Mom was in the kitchen, humming. When she saw me, she smiled like I just dropped in on a Tuesday. "Oh hey, Eli," she said. "You made it." I stood in the entryway for a beat. "Yeah, you said to stop by." She nodded, wiped her hands on a dish towel, then reached into the fridge. "I picked up a cupcake for you," she said, placing it on the counter. It was one of those generic grocery store ones. Chocolate base, white icing, no candle. She handed me a card, plain white envelope, already half opened. Inside was a folded piece of cardstock that said, "Maybe next year," in metallic lettering. That was it. No personal message. No joke. Just that. Caleb didn't even look up. I gave a small laugh, more out of disbelief than humor. "That's it." My mom raised her eyebrows. "Excuse me. This is it?" A store-bought cupcake and a card that literally says, "Maybe next year." She leaned back against the counter, arms crossed. "Don't be so sensitive, Eli. You're an adult. We figured you didn't need all the hoopla." But Caleb got a whole weekend retreat. A chef. A cabin. A crown that said, "Birthday King." "Well, Caleb's been going through a hard time," she snapped. "And he's more celebratory. You're so private, we didn't think you'd want a big fuss." I just stood there, the card limp in my hand, the cupcake starting to sweat under the fluorescent lights. My face was hot, but my voice stayed calm. "It's not about a big fuss. It's about the difference." She rolled her eyes. "Honestly, Eli, this is exactly why we didn't plan anything. You always make everything about you." That did something to me. Something deep. I'd spent most of my life excusing this exact kind of treatment, telling myself they meant well, that I was just imagining things. But in that moment, I realized it wasn't me. It never was. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out my phone, snapped a photo of the lone cupcake sitting next to the card. I looked at my mom and said, "Thanks." Then I turned around and left. I got in my car, drove straight to my apartment, and booked a flight to Lisbon for the next morning. I've been saving up for a vacation for 2 years, waiting for the right moment. Well, this was it. That night, as I was packing, I got a text from my dad. No greeting. Just, "Where did you go?" I didn't reply. Instead, I posted a photo on my Instagram, me at the airport lounge, boarding pass in hand. Caption, "Birthday retreat. No chef required." Within an hour, Caleb liked it. So did my cousin Danielle. Then I saw mom had viewed my story. 10 minutes later, her name lit up my screen. I let it ring. Then I silenced it. I sat back, sipped my drink, and waited for the next ping. It didn't take long. Another call. Then a text. Eli, this isn't funny. Call me. But I wasn't trying to be funny. I was done being the afterthought. I was finally putting myself first. And Lisbon? Lisbon was just the beginning. I landed in Lisbon early the next morning, just as the sun was spilling gold over the terracotta rooftops. The air was cool, crisp, and smelled faintly of ocean and pastry. I took a deep breath the moment I stepped out of the airport, and for the first time in a long time, I felt light. Not in a vacation kind of way. More like a weight had been quietly lifted off my back, one I didn't even know I'd been carrying for most of my life. My hotel was a small place tucked between two faded pink buildings in the Alfama district. It had crooked walls and a little balcony overlooking the city. The bed creaked when I sat on it. The floors were old, but clean, and it felt like mine. Like no one here expected anything from me or decided who I was before I even spoke. I didn't respond to my parents' texts. Not right away. Not after the fourth call either. It was only when I posted a photo of a pastel de nata on my story, captioned Breakfast of Kings, that the tone of the messages changed. At first, it was confusion. You're in Portugal? Is this a work trip? You didn't tell anyone you were leaving. Then came the guilt. We just wanted a low-key day. Caleb didn't even ask for all that stuff. We just thought he needed it. It was supposed to be funny. The card. You're taking it too seriously. But the last one from my mom stuck with me. It read, you always act like we treat you so horribly, but you never say what you actually want. Maybe if you spoke up more, things would be different. That's when I realized she didn't get it. She never had. This wasn't about me wanting balloons and a party. This wasn't about jealousy. This was about years of being overlooked, minimized, and told that I was too quiet or too sensitive anytime I pointed it out. It was about them bending over backwards for Caleb, while I became background noise they only acknowledged when it was convenient or when I stopped playing along. On the second night, I sat in a tiny fado bar, sipping my drink while a woman sang with tears in her voice. I stared at my phone, her voice haunting and soft behind me, and I finally texted my dad back. I went somewhere I mattered. I didn't hear back right away, but the next day, I got a group message. It was from Caleb. It said, dude, what is going on? Mom's freaking out. She thinks you're like, disappearing or something. She's calling every cousin asking where you are. And why are you being so dramatic? It was just a cupcake. Grow up. I didn't answer that one either. Instead, I scrolled through Airbnb and extended my stay. 2 more weeks. I started making lists of things I wanted to see. Sintra, Cascais, maybe even hop over to Spain. I hadn't even told my job I'd be gone this long, but after years of never using my vacation days, they owed me. And I owed this to myself. By the 5th day, the narrative back home had shifted. My aunt messaged me, out of the blue. Heard you're in Europe. Good for you. You deserve some spoiling. Let me know if you want the family to back off. Then came another message from my older cousin Greg, who I hadn't seen in years. Bro, I remember your 18th birthday. You got a card and a handshake. Caleb got a car at 18. Just saying. You're not crazy. I stared at that one for a while. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I had normalized being treated like an afterthought for so long that the moment I pushed back, everyone acted like I'd lost my mind. But here's the thing about space. It gives you perspective. And what I started to realize, as I explored cobbled alleyways and watched sunsets over the Tagus River, was that maybe I'd never been the problem. They just didn't like when I stopped playing my role. By the 7th day, things at home reached a new level of frantic. My mom had posted a cryptic status on Facebook. When your children vanish on you without a word, you start to wonder if the world is upside down. It had over 60 comments. A few relatives jumped in with hope everything's okay, or messaged me. One even tagged me. I didn't respond. Instead, I posted a photo, me at a cafe in Belém, sunglasses on, smiling. Caption, sometimes the best birthday gift is peace. Not 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Mom again. I ignored it. Then a message came through. This time not from my parents, not from Caleb. It was from my dad's work email. Eli, please call me. This is getting out of hand. I sat back. Why would he message me from work? Then, almost immediately after, came another message. From my boss. Hey, your mom called the office looking for you. Said it was urgent. Everything all right? My hands went cold. They weren't just panicking, they were escalating, involving people who had no business being part of this. And suddenly I knew this wasn't just about my birthday anymore. This was about control, about the way they'd always kept tabs on me, defined me, boxed me in, and how now, the moment I slipped outside their lines, they were trying to pull me back like a stray dog. I took a deep breath, heart pounding, and typed out one final message. You didn't worry when I was at your house holding a cupcake alone. Don't start worrying now. I'm fine. I'm just not coming back the same. And I meant it. Because the old version of me, the one who tolerated the silence, the minimization, the guilt trips masked as jokes, he wasn't on this trip. He stayed back home, next to that sad cupcake on the kitchen counter. But the version of me who was sipping espresso in the Lisbon sun, he was just getting started. And the next thing I did made it very, very clear that I wasn't asking for their permission anymore. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen missed calls. 2 from my dad, 3 from my mom, 1 from Caleb. The rest? All unrecognizable numbers, probably my mom calling from different phones, or worse, relatives she'd roped into the drama. But I didn't care. I was done playing the obedient son who always kept the peace. The one who said, "It's fine," when it clearly wasn't. I wasn't coming back to the same script where I showed up, got overlooked, and somehow still ended up being the one who had to apologize. After brushing my teeth, I walked down to a small bakery around the corner from my hotel. The woman behind the counter greeted me like she did every morning, warm, cheerful, with a genuine smile. I ordered 2 pastries and a coffee and took a seat outside. The sky was soft blue, streaked with clouds, and the street below was waking up. Locals sweeping their stoops, kids walking to school, a man selling books from a wooden cart. I watched them with a strange sort of envy. These strangers didn't know my name, my history, or what I was running from, but they treated me better than my own family did. And that realization hit harder than I expected. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I turned off my phone, completely off, not on silent, not on do not disturb. I shut it down and left it in the hotel room. Then I walked, for hours, through winding alleys and open plazas, past old churches and vibrant murals. I got lost somewhere near Barro Alto and stumbled into a tiny gallery where a man was painting scenes from his dreams. He said I had sad eyes but strong shoulders. I laughed and told him that was probably the most accurate thing anyone had said to me all year. I didn't think about my mom, or my dad, or the cupcake, or Caleb and his lake house weekend. Instead, I thought about myself, who I was when I wasn't constantly shrinking to fit the space they allowed me. That night, I bought a journal. First page, I wrote, "You are not selfish for choosing yourself." Second page, they only call it overreacting when they don't like the reaction. Third page, I listed every time I had been pushed to the side. My 18th birthday, they forgot it until dinner, then gave me a $20 gas card while Caleb got a party with friends and a cake shaped like a football. College graduation, they arrived late and left early for Caleb's soccer game, even though I gave the valedictorian speech. Christmas, 2 years ago, I bought thoughtful gifts for everyone. Caleb forgot mine entirely. Mom said, "He's just busy. Don't guilt trip him." The list went on. It wasn't about the gifts. It was the pattern. The message, "You're not the priority. You're not even close." The next day, I turned my phone back on. It exploded instantly. A barrage of messages, voicemails, missed calls, and surprisingly, screenshots. Someone had apparently seen my Instagram post and sent it to the extended family group chat. Now, uncles and aunts were weighing in. Some were sympathetic. "Eli, I had no idea. That post broke my heart. You always were so quiet. Maybe too quiet. I wish I'd said something." Others? Not so much. Running off and airing dirty laundry on social media? Not the adult thing to do. So dramatic. Everyone gets a cupcake birthday once in a while. Then came the one that pushed everything over the edge. My mom had texted a photo of my empty childhood bedroom. The furniture was rearranged. The bed was gone. My books, boxed up. My desk, replaced with a treadmill. She captioned it, "Didn't think you were coming back. Figured we'd use the space. No, love you. No, come home when you're ready." No apology. Just that. Like I was an inconvenience they were happy to be rid of. I sat there staring at the screen, jaw clenched, heart thudding. And in that moment, something inside me flipped. Not sadness, not anger, but something colder, clearer. Resolve. I took a deep breath and responded with one message: "You don't have to make space for me. I've already found mine. And then I did the thing they never expected me to do. I logged into my bank account. I've been quietly saving for years. While Caleb bounced from job to job, leaning on my parents every time rent was due, I built something real. Investments. A growing side business. A six-figure safety net. And now, I was going to use it. Not just for plane tickets and pastries, but for something bigger. A few calls. Some paperwork. A leap of faith. By the end of the week, I signed the lease on a small apartment right in the heart of Lisbon. Brick walls, open windows, a writing nook overlooking the street. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. And then I did one more thing. I drafted an email. A simple, polite message. Not angry. Not dramatic. Subject, resignation notice. I explained I was pursuing new opportunities abroad and thanked them for everything. I didn't mention my mom, or her calls to the office, or how humiliating that was. But I think my boss understood. Her reply came 10 minutes later. We'll miss you, Eli. But good for you. Go live your life. And that was it. The ties were cut. No more calendar reminders for family birthdays I'd be forgotten at. No more showing up out of obligation. No more explanations for why I didn't make more of an effort. I had made all the effort. For years. Quietly. Patiently. Kindly. And I was done. But just when I thought the story had reached its quiet, peaceful ending, just when I began to believe they'd finally let it go, something happened. Something that pulled me right back in. Something that made all the calls, the guilt, the silence, look like child's play in comparison. And when I found out what they'd done next, I realized they weren't just trying to pull me home. They were trying to erase me. I found out on a random Thursday morning. I just finished my walk along the waterfront, coffee in hand, sun on my back. Life was quieter now, more still. I'd adjusted to the rhythm of Lisbon like it was always mine. No more checking my phone every few minutes. No more jumping at the sound of a buzz or wondering what kind of guilt trip would come next. I'd learned to live in the pause between breaths, to sit in silence without needing to fill it. But that morning, an email hit my inbox from an old college friend, Jason. We hadn't spoken in almost a year, but I remembered him being friendly with Caleb once upon a time. The subject line was short. Saw this. Thought you should know. The email only had one sentence. Your brother posted this. Attached was a screenshot of a Facebook post from Caleb. The caption read, Family isn't about who runs off when things get hard. It's about who stays. I'm proud to be here, helping Mom and Dad rebuild after Eli's betrayal. Under it was a photo. My old room, painted over in a sterile shade of beige. The bookshelves cleared. My college diploma, which had hung on the far wall for years, was gone. In its place was a framed photo of Caleb shaking hands with some local business owner. The caption below that image read, New Beginnings. The comments were worse. Aunt Marissa, so proud of you for stepping up. Eli always was different. My cousin's wife, shame he couldn't just talk to the family. Vanishing like that? Immature. And then the kicker from my own mother. Sometimes the prodigal son doesn't return, but the son who stays builds the future. My hands went numb. I read that sentence 5, 6, 7 times. They weren't just erasing me from the room. They were rewriting the story. Suddenly, I wasn't the quiet, steady one who kept the peace. I was the son who ran, the one who left them behind, the one who didn't care. Caleb wasn't the golden boy anymore. He was the savior, the martyr, the one who stayed to help Mom and Dad in their hard time, a hard time they created for themselves. But here's what hit me hardest. They knew I wouldn't defend myself publicly. They were banking on it. They knew I hated drama, confrontation, spectacle. They counted on me watching silently from across the ocean as they rewrote the truth. That's when I made a decision. No more silence. No more disappearing to keep the peace. I opened my laptop and began to type. I didn't write a scathing, venomous post. That's not who I am. But I did write the truth. Calmly. Carefully. Like someone laying down receipts after years of being doubted. I posted it with no photo. Just words. For those of you who've been told a story about me, here's mine. I didn't run off. I didn't abandon anyone. I simply stopped trying to earn the love and respect that should have been freely given by the people who raised me. On my brother's birthday, our parents rented a lake house, hired a private chef, and celebrated him like royalty. On mine, I received a single store-bought cupcake and a card that read, maybe next year. When I expressed hurt, I was told I was being too sensitive. I took a photo of the gift, quietly left, and booked a flight to Lisbon. That decision was not a tantrum. It was a boundary. For years, I played the role they needed, quiet, helpful, low maintenance. I watched as my milestones were skipped, my accomplishments downplayed, and my feelings dismissed. And still, I stayed loyal. I gave the benefit of the doubt. I showed up. Until I realized showing up for people who never show up for you is not noble, it's self-abandonment. I've received dozens of messages since I left. Some kind, others cruel. To those who say I should have just spoken up, I did. Many times. It just didn't matter until I stopped playing along. I don't need pity. I don't need applause. I just want the truth to live somewhere, untouched by guilt trips and half-truths. I didn't run. I chose peace. And sometimes, choosing peace means walking away from people who refuse to see you clearly. I clicked post. And then I turned off my phone again. For 2 days. When I turned it back on, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Hundreds of comments. Dozens of messages. My story had been shared, screenshotted, reposted. People, friends, distant relatives, even strangers, were chiming in. This hit me hard. I've been the background sibling too. Thank you for saying what so many of us can't. This is why emotional neglect is so hard to explain. It's invisible until it's undeniable. But one message stood out. It was from Danielle, my cousin on my dad's side. We hadn't spoken in years. Eli, I always thought something was off with how they treated you. I just didn't know how to say it. I'm sorry. I see you. And I'm glad you got out. That was the beginning. The beginning of other voices coming forward. Not everyone took my side. Some doubled down. My mom, predictably, posted another passive-aggressive message. Some people air their wounds instead of healing them. Caleb messaged me once. Congrats on your little pity parade. You always loved playing victim. I didn't respond. Because I wasn't playing anything anymore. I was done performing. And life, quietly, began to fill with real things. I joined a writing group in Lisbon. Got a part-time job editing English-language articles for a travel magazine. I started cooking again, something I hadn't done since college. I made friends, real ones, who didn't know anything about Caleb or the cupcake or the house I used to live in. Friends who laughed at my jokes, not at me. Who invited me out without expecting anything. Who listened when I spoke. A month after the post went viral, I got an email from a publisher who'd seen it and wanted to talk about expanding it into a memoir. I wasn't sure at first, but then I remembered all the messages I'd received, people saying I put into words what they'd felt for years. Maybe my story wasn't just mine. Maybe it was a mirror for others too. And maybe, just maybe, my voice, once dismissed as too quiet, was finally loud enough to matter. I accepted the deal. A year later, my book hit shelves in 10 countries. Maybe next year. Choosing yourself when they never did. The dedication page read simply, for the kids with cupcakes and cards who kept waiting for next year. Your piece doesn't need their permission. My parents never reached out again. Caleb did once, sent me a screenshot of the book cover and said, hope the attention was worth it. I didn't reply, because it was never about attention. It was about truth. And truth, when spoken clearly, echoes in places silence never could. So here I am, living in a sun-drenched apartment on a quiet Lisbon street. Writing, laughing, loving, not loudly, not perfectly, but fully, finally. And when April 5th rolls around each year now, I don't wait for a text. I buy myself the biggest, fluffiest cupcake in the bakery, with candles, and sprinkles, and a handwritten card tucked beside it that says, you're worth celebrating. This year, every year, and for the first time in my life, I believe it. My name's Jason, I'm 28, and I've always been the quiet one in the family. The one who didn't ask for much, didn't raise a fuss, didn't make waves. That was the role I was given, and for years, I stuck to it, partly out of habit, partly because I thought if I just kept my head down long enough, they'd finally see me. Really see me. Not as the responsible one, or the one who doesn't need anything, but as a son, a brother, a person who mattered just as much as the rest. But that never happened. And this year, on my birthday, something inside me finally snapped. It started like every other family gathering. My mom texted me earlier in the week, casually saying we'd do something small on Sunday. She didn't ask what I wanted. No mention of plans, no dinner reservation, no excitement. Just an, oh yeah, we'll do something. I knew better than to expect much, but a part of me still held out hope, because 3 weeks earlier, for my younger brother Ryan's 25th, they threw a full-blown bash. Rented a party bus, blasted music all over the neighborhood, and even surprised him with a weekend trip to the mountains. Everyone posted photos on Instagram, tagging him with big, beaming captions like best brother ever, and can't imagine life without this guy. I smiled politely in the group shots, kept the camera steady when I was asked to take videos, and didn't say a word when no one thanked me for covering the catering deposit up front. That was always my role, the background guy. So Sunday rolls around. I showed up at the house around noon, wearing jeans and a polo shirt, nothing flashy, but I'd at least taken the time to shave and bring over some fresh pastries from the bakery near my apartment. My sister Emma opened the door, distracted and on the phone, barely pausing to say hi before walking back inside. The living room was quiet. No balloons, no decorations, not even a happy birthday banner. Just my mom in the kitchen, pulling a single plastic-wrapped cupcake from the fridge and placing it on a paper plate. "There it is," she said with a tired smile, like she was offering me a rare treat. "You still like vanilla, right?" I stared at the cupcake. The frosting was already sliding off the top, and someone had jabbed a crooked candle into it. My dad came in from the garage holding a card, the kind you grab last minute from a drugstore, already signed in different handwriting by everyone, from all of us. No note, no message, just a few names scrawled under a printed joke about aging. I didn't say anything right away. I didn't trust myself to. I just stood there, blinking back whatever this tight feeling in my throat was. It wasn't anger, exactly. It was worse, like I'd spent years trying to be okay with being overlooked, and now I couldn't even fake it anymore. My dad clapped me on the shoulder. "Go ahead, make a wish. And hey, don't expect a parade. You're not a kid anymore." That did it. I looked up at him, then at my mom, who was busy scrolling through her phone like she hadn't even heard him. My brother was nowhere to be seen, probably still recovering from his birthday weekend. Emma had disappeared upstairs. I was alone in the kitchen, staring down at a cupcake no one even bothered to light properly. I blew out the candle without a word, picked up my bag, and walked out the front door. No one stopped me. No one even asked where I was going. I got in my car, drove back to my apartment, and sat in the parking lot for a solid 15 minutes before I could even move. It wasn't just about the cupcake. It wasn't just about this year. It was about every year. Every time I'd covered a bill without complaint, offered to help with moving, babysat nieces and nephews, driven 2 hours for holidays without asking for anything. Every time I'd made myself smaller, quieter, easier, because I thought that's what family needed me to be. Later that night, after I'd checked into a hotel a few towns over, I finally looked at my phone. One text. From Emma. It read, "Mom's crying. Where are you?" I stared at the message for a long time, thumbs hovering over the keyboard, wondering what I was supposed to feel. Guilt? Regret? A sudden urge to rush back and fix things? Instead, I turned off my phone, closed my eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I let the silence settle in without apologizing for it. The next morning, I woke up early. Not because I had to, there were no work calls, no family texts blowing up my phone, yet, but because my body was still wired from the night before. I'd fallen asleep with that tight feeling still in my chest, the kind that doesn't really go away, it just dulls with time. The hotel room was quiet. Generic beige walls, stiff sheets, the hum of the air conditioner, sterile, impersonal, but weirdly comforting. No family photos. No passive-aggressive comments floating in from another room. Just silence. I checked my phone. Missed calls from Mom. One from Dad. A few from Emma. Nothing from Ryan, of course. I wasn't surprised. He probably didn't even know or care that I'd left. I didn't answer any of them. Not yet. I needed space. Time to think. For once, I wanted to sit with how I felt without having to explain it to anyone who'd already decided I was too sensitive or overreacting. Around noon, I went down to the hotel cafe, ordered a proper breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee that didn't come from a reheated pot, and brought my laptop with me. I started scrolling through my email and bank accounts. I wasn't just wasting time. I was planning. You see, here's what no one in my family really talked about. I had quietly become the financial backbone of that household. Not because they were destitute, but because they were careless. My parents had made a series of bad investments in their late 50s and were quietly bailed out by me more times than I could count. When Emma went back to school, I helped pay for her tuition shortfall. When Ryan moved out and couldn't make rent, I loaned him a few thousand to get on his feet. My name was on the utilities at my parents' house. I paid for the monthly internet, half the mortgage, though no one mentioned that during family dinners, and most of the maintenance for the family car Dad still drove. I did it because, at the time, it felt like the right thing to do. But what happened the day before made me realize something. They didn't just rely on me, they expected it. They thought of me as reliable, not generous. A wallet, not a person. And worst of all, they didn't respect me enough to even pretend otherwise. After breakfast, I made a list. I pulled up all the accounts where I was listed as the payer, co-owner, or financial backer. Then I started making calls and sending emails, slowly, methodically, calmly. The car insurance? Canceled. I had a separate policy on my personal vehicle anyway. The house utilities? Disconnected from my account. I scheduled it to end by the end of the billing cycle. No drama, just clean breaks. The bank account I shared with my mom, the one where I'd been depositing a monthly helping hand, closed. I transferred the remaining funds back to my personal savings and sent her a polite email letting her know I was no longer in a position to contribute. The family Netflix, Hulu, and every other subscription that magically charged my card every month without anyone saying thank you? Gone. One click. Log out of all devices. By the time I was done, I felt lighter. Not free yet, but lighter. Like I was finally shifting the weight I'd been carrying alone for years. I stayed at the hotel for 2 more days. In that time, Emma sent 3 more texts. One said, "Seriously, where are you? Mom's freaking out." Another just said, "This is childish." And then finally, "You know you hurt them, right?" That one made me pause. Not because it was true, but because it was exactly the problem. I hurt them. They couldn't even imagine I'd been hurt first. On the 3rd morning, I finally responded. Just one message. Ask Mom what she did for my birthday. 5 minutes later, Emma replied, "Jason, it's not a competition." I didn't answer. Instead, I drove back to my apartment. I wasn't hiding. I just didn't feel like being the one to show up first, tail between my legs, like I was supposed to apologize for finally drawing a boundary. That weekend, I didn't hear from anyone. But on Monday morning, I got a call from my dad. I let it go to voicemail. His message was short, clipped. "Jason, we need to talk. I think you're taking this too far. Your mother's really upset. We're family. Call me back." Family. That word used to mean something to me. Now, it just sounded like a card they pulled out when things didn't go their way. I didn't call back. Later that afternoon, I got a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I looked through the peephole, I saw Ryan. Backpack slung over one shoulder, looking like he hadn't slept in a day. "Open up, man," he said. "We need to talk." That was the moment things started shifting. Slowly, uneasily, but definitely. I didn't open the door right away. I just stood there, staring through the peephole at Ryan like I was looking at a stranger. My little brother. Golden boy. Favorite child. The one who got the cheers, the weekends away, the surprise parties, that "we're so proud of you" speeches I never heard growing up. We were close once, or at least I thought we were, until I realized most of our closeness was me helping him, covering for him, picking up the slack so he could keep coasting. He'd never showed up at my door like this before, uninvited, unannounced, and definitely not when things got uncomfortable at home. "Jason," he said again, softer this time. "Come on." I sighed and opened the door just enough to lean against the frame. "What do you want?" He gave a sheepish half-smile like we were still kids and he'd just broken a window with a baseball. "Look, I didn't know it was like that bad." I raised an eyebrow. Didn't know what was bad? That nobody could bother to plan more than a grocery store cupcake for my birthday? Or that I was paying your rent 3 months ago while everyone else was busy throwing you a party bus bash? He shifted on his feet, trying to play it cool. "Okay, yeah, that was messed up. But like, you didn't say anything." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how predictable it was. "Of course I didn't," I said. "You know why? Because I was raised in that house. Taught that if I wanted attention, I was being dramatic. If I asked for anything, I was being selfish. And if I ever said, 'Hey, I feel left out,' I was told to stop making it about me." He didn't have a comeback. Just looked down at his shoes and scratched the back of his neck. "I mean, yeah, that sounds about right. And you still let it happen," I added. "Every time. You knew. You had to know." He didn't deny it. "I didn't think it mattered to you," he finally said. "You always seemed like you were good. Like you didn't care about that stuff." That hit harder than I expected. I was good. At pretending. At swallowing things. At being the one no one had to worry about. But I was tired. So tired of being the solid one, so everyone else could afford to fall apart. I opened the door fully and motioned for him to come in. We sat on the couch, and I waited. Let the silence hang. I wanted him to feel it, the weight I carried in every one of those silences he'd never noticed before. "So, now what?" he finally asked, picking at the loose string on his sleeve. You cutting everyone off? I shrugged. Not out of spite. But I'm done being used. He gave a bitter laugh. You think they'll even notice? I know they will, I said. Mom's already crying, remember? He winced. She's a mess. Keeps saying she didn't mean for things to be unfair. Funny how she only says that now. Ryan looked up at me then. Really looked. Not like a little brother to an older one, but like a guy who just realized someone he'd taken for granted had lines he didn't know not to cross. What do you want me to do? He asked. Like, I can't fix all of it, but tell me what you need. It was a rare moment of humility from him. I believed it, mostly, but I also knew this wasn't just about me. It was about the entire house of cards my parents had built, with me as the foundation. And now that I'd started pulling out, it was all starting to shake. Tell them the truth, I said. Tell them you saw me walk out because I was tired of being treated like I don't matter. Tell them I won't be helping with money anymore. No more, just until the end of the month. No more covering Dad's truck repairs or Mom's prescriptions or Emma's tuition shortfalls. He nodded slowly, the weight of that finally settling in. And if they ask why, I added, don't tell them I'm angry. Tell them I'm done. He left without another word. Just a quiet nod, like he finally got it, or at least was trying to. I didn't expect him to change overnight. I didn't expect any of them to. But I knew, deep down, something had shifted. Later that night, I got a voicemail from Mom. She didn't yell, didn't guilt trip me. Her voice was quiet, tired. Jason, I didn't mean for it to be so uneven. I guess I thought you didn't need the same things. And maybe that was a terrible assumption. I'm sorry. Please come by. Or call. Just something. I didn't respond. Not yet. Because what came next wasn't an apology. It was denial, guilt, pressure. And then the real manipulation began. 2 days passed. No more calls. No more texts. Just silence. Then, like clockwork, it all came crashing in. It started with a message from Emma, not a text, but a long, dramatic email. The subject line read, "You're tearing this family apart." I didn't even have to open it to know what was inside. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I clicked. The first line, "I don't know what's gotten into you, Jason, but this isn't how families work." She went on to list everything I'd done, walking out, abandoning Mom, making a scene, and withholding support like you're punishing us. She said I was acting like a stranger, that our parents were hurting, and it was my responsibility to help keep the family together. My responsibility, not Ryan's, not hers, just mine. There was no mention of the cupcake, no mention of the years of lopsided treatment or how I'd subsidized half their lives. Just a guilt-laced plea dressed up as concern. The kicker? She closed with, "If you don't come over this weekend, I don't know if we can ever fix this." I sat there staring at my screen, stunned, not by the words, but by how unsurprising they were. That weekend came and went. I didn't go. Sunday night, I got a text from Dad. Just 2 words, "Call me." I didn't. So he showed up at my apartment. He knocked twice, then harder. When I didn't answer, I heard his voice through the door, low, firm, but laced with frustration. "Jason, enough of this. Open the door." I didn't move. He knocked again. "I know you're in there." I stayed quiet. Then he said something that made me clench my fists. "You're making your mother sick, you know? She's barely eating." Like clockwork. Emotional blackmail. I opened the door, slowly, and stood there. We stared at each other for a moment. His expression was hard, like he'd rehearsed this confrontation. I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't here to listen. He was here to win. "You done sulking?" he said. That word, sulking, lit something in me. "Is that what you think this is?" I asked quietly. "I think," he said, stepping inside uninvited, "that this little stunt has gone far enough. Your mother's been crying, Emma's furious, and Ryan, well, he's trying. But this is getting out of hand." I stood still, trying to stay calm. "You're talking about a stunt, but not once have you asked why I left." Dad scoffed. "Because we didn't throw a big party? Come on, Jason. You're 30. You don't need balloons and confetti." "No," I said. "I needed to feel like I mattered. I needed someone to show me that I'm not just a bank account and a backup plan. That after all these years, I'm more than just the one who keeps things running while everyone else gets to shine." He rolled his eyes. "You've always been dramatic." That word again. Dramatic. I laughed once, bitter and short. "You know what? You can go." "What?" "You heard me," I said. "You came here to convince me I'm the problem. You didn't come to apologize. You didn't come to understand. You came because things are falling apart now that I stopped paying for everything. He narrowed his eyes. You think this is about money? I know it is, I said. Because the moment the bank shut off, the whole house started shaking. Dad didn't say anything, just stood there, fuming. And then, in a tone I hadn't heard since I was a kid, he said, "You think you're better than us now, huh?" I looked him dead in the eye. No, I just finally think I deserve equal. He left without another word. The next day, the family group chat, which I hadn't left, just muted, lit up. Emma said she was disappointed in how I'd handled things. Mom sent a single message, "I don't know who you've become." And then Ryan dropped said, "He became the only adult in the room. Took me too long to see it." The chat went silent. The days that followed were quiet. I thought it might finally be over. But that was when the real turning point came. A letter arrived in the mail, certified, from a lawyer. Inside, notice of intent from my parents to remove me from the future estate plan due to estrangement and recent behavior. I sat at my kitchen table holding the paper, a cold shock running through me. Not because I cared about the inheritance, but because they genuinely thought that was leverage. They didn't know I already knew. I'd seen the estate documents 2 years ago when I helped pay for the lawyer. I was never the main beneficiary. Ryan was. They were just using it now, dangling the illusion of something I'd already been excluded from, like I should be grateful for a future scrap. That was the final straw. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood up, walked to my desk, and pulled out a folder labeled receipts. Literal and metaphorical. I had every email, every bank transfer, every invoice I'd paid for them over the last 5 years. I didn't gather them for revenge. I gathered them because I'd learned, slowly and painfully, that people will rewrite history if you let them. And now, I wasn't letting anyone rewrite mine. I spent that entire night going through the folder. Every transfer, every receipt, every polite little "thanks, Jay" text I'd gotten after covering yet another family bill. I screenshotted bank statements, dug up emailed invoices, pulled up texts from years ago that said things like, "Hey, can you cover this month?" Just until we get things sorted. I built a timeline, organized, thorough, impossible to argue with. Then I wrote a letter. Not emotional, not angry, just facts. I included totals. I noted exact dates. I listed the utility accounts still tied to my name, the car insurance payments, the emergency transfers when mom's credit card bounced or dad's truck broke down. I finished it with one sentence. Consider this formal notice that all financial support, direct or indirect, has been permanently discontinued as of this date. Then I attached everything and sent it to each of them, Mom, Dad, Emma, and even Ryan, through individual emails marked with red receipts. I also CC'd the lawyer who sent me the estate letter with a short message, "Appreciate the heads up. Please note I was never the intended beneficiary, so no need to threaten me with exclusion. I'm not interested in scraps. I've been the one subsidizing the empire." Less than an hour later, my phone rang. It was Emma. I let it go to voicemail. Then came Mom and Dad. Then a flurry of messages in the family group chat, most of them some variation of, "This is unnecessary, you're blowing things out of proportion," and my personal favorite, "This isn't how families solve problems." Right. Because apparently, families only solve problems when it doesn't involve confronting their own behavior. Then Ryan texted me privately. I read it all. I didn't know it was that much. I responded, simply, "Now you do." He didn't reply, but I noticed he left the group chat later that night. The following weekend, I got a call from my aunt, Mom's sister. I hadn't spoken to her in years, mostly because we only saw each other during holidays and she lived out of state. But she'd seen the ripple effect, heard the family's version of the story, then saw my email, which Mom had forwarded to the extended family with a dramatic caption, "Look what Jason's turned into." "I wanted to hear it from you," my aunt said over the phone. So I told her everything, slowly, calmly. I didn't exaggerate, didn't try to spin it. Just laid it out like a story I'd finally decided was worth telling. When I was done, she let out a long breath. "I always wondered why they leaned on you so much," she said. "But I figured it was mutual. I didn't realize they never gave you anything back." That was the first time I heard someone in the family say it. She didn't offer a solution, didn't try to fix it, just validated it. That alone meant more to me than any fake birthday celebration. In the weeks that followed, things changed, but not in the way sitcoms promise. There was no big family reunion, no heartfelt apology in the rain. No group hug in the driveway while dramatic music played. Instead, the silence grew longer, heavier, and somehow more peaceful. Mom tried reaching out a few more times. She even sent a letter in the mail, handwritten, pages long. It rambled, half apology, half guilt trip. She said she never realized how much I did, that she thought I didn't mind, that she wasn't perfect, but always had good intentions. And I believed that. I did. But I also believe that good intentions don't excuse years of selective blindness. So I wrote back, I don't hate you. I'm not trying to hurt anyone, but I won't pretend anymore. I'm not the unbreakable one, and I never should have had to be. I'm okay with space if that's what it takes for people to see me clearly. She didn't respond. I saw Emma once, months later, at a mutual friend's wedding. She walked up stiffly, held a drink like a shield, and said, "You look good." "You too," I replied. We stood in silence for a beat. Then she said, "Ryan's been different. More grounded. I think seeing the numbers finally shook him." I nodded. "I didn't mean for things to get so cold," she added. "I know," I said, "but I think the cold helped me see what was real." She didn't argue, just gave me a sad smile, then drifted back into the crowd. Eventually, Dad reached out again. Not to apologize, but to offer a fresh start. He suggested we put the past behind us and come by for Thanksgiving. I declined. "I'm building something new," I said. "Maybe someday we can meet in the middle, but not yet." Because here's the thing, he wasn't offering reconciliation. He was offering a reset on their terms. The kind where no one talks about what happened and everything goes back to normal. But I didn't want normal. I wanted honest. And I learned that people who aren't willing to talk about the hurt aren't ready to rebuild trust. In time, I filled the space they left behind. I spent more weekends with friends who didn't treat me like a utility. I reconnected with old college buddies. I even joined a hiking group, something I'd never made time for before because I was always too needed. I celebrated my next birthday in a quiet cabin with 3 friends and 0 expectations. No flashy party. No drama. Just a weekend of peace, laughter, and people who showed up because they wanted to, not because I sent reminders. That was the first time I truly felt celebrated. Not for what I could do, not for what I gave, but just for being me. So no, this story doesn't end with dramatic fireworks or explosive revenge. It ends with a quiet reclamation of time, of space, of worth. I didn't burn bridges. I just stopped repairing ones that only ever led me to places I didn't feel welcome. And I'm not angry anymore. I'm free. And that's worth more than every party bus, every banner, every "from all of us" card I never asked for but kept pretending was enough. Now, I don't settle for crumbs from a table I built. I set my own, and only invite people who bring something real,